President Trump says he is ending U.S. trade talks with Canada over what he calls a fake TV commercial. And Target is cutting 1,800 corporate positions as the company works to revive sales. Good morning, I'm Corva Coleman from NPR News, and here are today's top stories. President Trump says he is cutting off trade talks between the U.S. and Canada. Trump is blaming an anti-tariff commercial issued by the Canadian provincial government of Ontario. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation says the ad misrepresents a radio address given by the late former president. Dan Karpinchuk reports from Toronto.
Trump says the ad from the Ontario government shows Ronald Reagan speaking negatively about tariffs is fake. On his Truth Social platform, Trump said he is calling off trade talks with Canada because of the ad which he attributed to Canada. He also posted that tariffs are important to the national security and economy of the U.S., and based on their egregious behavior, all trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated. Ontario spent $75 million to broadcast the anti-tariff ad, focusing on Republican voters. It featured former President Ronald Reagan speaking in 1987, saying in the long term, tariffs do not work. The ad has been airing on all major U.S. networks. So far, there's been no reaction from Ottawa to Trump's declaration. For NPR News, I'm Dan Karpinchuk in Toronto.
Today is day 24 of the federal government shutdown. It's the first day most federal employees will miss their full paychecks. State governors are now issuing the alarm about government food assistance, also known as SNAP. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry says that aid will stop on November 1st. From member station WRKF in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Mel Bridges reports.
Roughly 800,000 people here, or about 1 in 5, receive SNAP benefits. With SNAP benefits running out, more people have to rely on food banks. Mike Manning, president and CEO of the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank, says they're still trying to figure out how they're going to keep up.
Once the SNAP benefits go away and people can no longer use their SNAP cards, it's going to be a real challenge because we're going to see people coming to us for help. And we're already very limited in the amount of food we have available.
Governor Landry, a Republican, blames the lack of funding on Senate Democrats. Each party accuses the other of using the pain caused by the shutdown for political leverage. For NPR News, I'm Mel Bridges in Baton Rouge.
Consumer prices remained higher in September. They were up 3% over what they were a year ago. The inflation report released just this morning from the federal government had been delayed because of the federal government shutdown. Cattle ranchers are pushing back against President Trump's proposal to import more beef from Argentina. Trump says it's an effort to lower beef prices in the U.S., but it also helps Trump's ally, the right-wing president of Argentina. Trump also spearheaded a $20 billion U.S. bailout of Argentina. From Colorado Public Radio, Caitlin Kim reports on U.S. reaction.
Kyler Brown works for his family's small cattle and farm operation in southern Colorado and says he's frustrated by the Trump administration's plan to quadruple the amount of beef it imports from Argentina.
One of the few bright spots in pretty much all of agriculture was that the cattle industry was finally maybe making some profit.
Brown says there are a lot of reasons beef prices are high, including the lowest herd size in decades. Despite criticism from U.S. producers, the administration isn't signaling a change. Trump said on social media the consumer is a big factor in his thinking. For NPR News, I'm Caitlin Kim in Washington.
President Trump has finished demolishing the east wing of the White House. It's now a pile of rubble. Historical and preservation groups had urged Trump to temporarily halt the White House destruction, but NPR's Tamara Keith reports the pleas were ignored.
In a letter, the National Trust for Historic Preservation in the United States urged the Trump administration to pause the demolition until plans for the 90,000-square-foot ballroom, far bigger than the main house, can go through a review process. The White House says the offices and other East Wing features, including the secure underground Presidential Emergency Operations Center, will be modernized and enhanced as part of the ballroom project. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
New York Attorney General Letitia James is scheduled to appear in a federal courtroom in Virginia today. She's expected to plead not guilty to charges she committed bank fraud. President Trump had demanded the prosecution of the Democrat. James says Trump has weaponized the Justice Department. The NBA says it's cooperating with 2 federal investigations into illegal gambling and sports rigging. One probe involves defendants who allegedly shared information about NBA players with people who wanted to bet on pro basketball games. The other probe involves alleged illegal betting on poker games. There are numerous defendants, including members of organized crime families. NPR's Becky Sullivan reports one defendant in this group is the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, Chauncey Billups.
He faces a count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to money launder. Both of those are related, actually, to an indictment about underground poker games. In that indictment, prosecutors allege that organized crime groups basically run these games and use Billups. They say that they used Billups as a celebrity to sort of lure in victims, and then the organizers used all this high-tech equipment like rigged shuffling machines and x-ray poker tables and special glasses to cheat and win. But the other indictment that's about sports gambling, Billups is not named there, but there is an unnamed co-conspirator described in a way that matches Billups exactly.
NPR's Becky Sullivan reporting. Large retailer Target is cutting 1,800 corporate jobs. NPR's Alina Selyuk reports the company is trying to revive sales and increase customer traffic.
Target says it's laying off 1,000 corporate employees, particularly managers, and it will not hire for another 800 open positions. That's one of the biggest job cuts in Target's history, about 8% of the global team. And it's coming from Target's incoming CEO, Michael Fidelki. He's a longtime company executive who's getting the top job despite investors' hopes for an outsider to shake up the retailer. Target sales have been flat or down for going on 3 years as shoppers look elsewhere for cheaper prices or more unique offerings. Fidelki, in a memo, says job cuts are meant to simplify complexity. Quote, too many layers and overlapping work that slowed decisions and ideas. Alina Selyuk, NPR News.
European Union leaders have agreed to a new sanctions package against Russia, but they're divided about whether and how to use frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine. Terry Schultz reports from Brussels.
For EU leaders who've now passed 19 rounds of sanctions on Moscow, the first measures in President Trump's term are very welcome pressure to make the Kremlin end its war on Ukraine. But the 27 governments were unable to bridge differences over whether 140 billion euros in frozen Russian assets held in a Belgian financial institution can be used to guarantee a loan to Ukraine. Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever insists they all share the risk that Russia could legally demand the funds back.
We will suffer from enormous claims. So if we want to do this, we will have to do this all together.
EU officials will now draft a plan for how the loan would work, and leaders will come back to it in December. For NPR News, I'm Terry Schultz in Brussels.
It's NPR.